Welcome to the channel Tribe. In this session of Instagram Live, we are having Jayesh Salgaonkar discussing on how to transition from testing to automation or SDET role. Huge shout out to BrowserStack, our exclusive sponsor for all community events and premier sponsor for conferences. We thank them for supporting this event.
Have our guest here for today. Hi Jayesh, how are you doing?
Hello, hi Vanshika. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm fine. Let's move on to talk a little about yourself. So tell me a little about yourself, like what do you do in general? What are your hobbies? What do you do in your free time? Like today, you were just talking about it, but yeah, do tell us about that.
Uh, well, I'm kind of a very old school person to start with, right? I believe in preparation in whatever aspects of my life that I want to do, whether it is personal or professional. So let's talk about professional first. Uh, when it comes to doing the daily business, I'm a strong believer in preparation. I'm a strong believer in going to the core, very hard at preparation, because then that eases your execution, right? That's the best advantage of doing that. And this ideology or mentality, I try to put in the extracurricular activities that I do. So I am indoor cricketer. I represent Singapore in indoor cricket. And the good news that I would like to share with you and all of us who are here on this call, that I'm part of the World Cup, which is happening next month in October in Melbourne. So this preparatory mindset that goes well into my professional career also goes into my personal career, which is, of course, it's another form of profession as a cricketer, but that's what I like to do. Work dedicatedly, play dedicatedly, enjoy your time with your family, with your friends dedicatedly, and that kind of gives me the satisfaction that I want, and I have a very satisfactory shut eye every evening.
That sounds amazing. And I can see from the way you are talking that you like your professional life just as much as you like the things you are doing when you're not working, right? So it's like a very good balance that I think all of us should learn to just have a good mental health and have a good physical health also.
Absolutely. This is one of the learnings that I took from my leaders, right? That it's one personality. It cannot have it one person, so it cannot have two personalities. It should have only one personality, right? I've seen a lot of my friends that they have a different personality when they are in their professional avatar, and completely different when they are in their personal avatar, and it becomes quite a pressure to basically maintain those.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest learning I got from my leaders, that you don't have to be the same person whichever avatar you are, and that kind of makes you fall in love with what you do.
That's true. That's so true. So another question I'm throwing to with you, and that is,
So
how did you start your professional journey? Like, can you give us a little bit background about that?
sure. I started as a pure functional tester back in 2007, 2008, which is 15 years ago. And that's why I wanted to go back 15 years ago when given a hands on the time machine, which I loved a lot. I learned a lot about the banking processes, the banking application. Predominantly, I was working in a fintech organizations and fintech consulting companies. From there, from 2007, 2008 to 2015, I was very satisfied and very happy in the work that I was doing. There was a lot of learning curves, there were a lot of learning aspects to what I was doing. There was a lot of sharing. I met some of the great leaders in that industry who were kind of very happy to share what they do, and it was very insightful for me. And then in 2015, 2016, I got my first opportunity to have an hands-on on an automation work. So it was again a fintech solution, which has a proprietary fintech oriented tool to use for test automation. And I was thrown at it being a consultant, and I learned it like being an old school student. What I did, when I know that I have to use this tool, instead of touching this tool first, I touched the manual. I read through the manual, 300 pages manual, and I was like, okay, it's good to do. And we were successfully able to deliver the automation framework that particular client wanted. And I felt at that time that this is test automation. It's not that difficult. And I was happily doing it for next 2 years for that same client. And then there was a big turnaround that happened in my organization. Our CTO, he took a decision that, being fintech is fun, but being digital transformation company is exciting. And he threw all of us to new exciting challenges where that is the first time I believe in 2017, 2018 that happened, where I was actually exposed to what automation is, right? Using a proprietary tool for a fintech solution and delivering the solutions in terms of writing test scripts. I felt that was automation. But in 2018, when I was exposed to the open source world of the tools that we have and the frameworks that we have, that was a real eye opener for me, right? And it was overwhelming at first place. We got enough time to train, but there was not clear direction, at least on the test automation or quality engineering side, right? But I got enough time. I got some ideas of what we are looking at to do: regression automation, continuous integration. Those are the terms that I was learning for the first time in 2017 and 2018. So going through the trainings and learning about it, I kind of figured out what are my roles and responsibilities and starting working towards it. But that very quickly exposed when I was put on a project that whatever my understanding was way too less than what exactly the actual work I was supposed to do. That is the time I got hang on to YouTube videos. They become my daily go-to videos and my good friends. If I'm doing something I'm not familiar with, I'll search on Google, I'll find some relevant videos, understand quickly what needs to be done, do it and deliver it. I did that for good 2 years again, about 2018, 2019, 2020. Now I created a new perception. I thought, now, okay, this is test automation, right? There is something that needs to happen with less manual intervention, and you do it by means of going to the videos. Fun. That's cool. And 2020, what happened? We hit by pandemic, right? And we all were sitting at home, focusing on our work, and I had enough time at that time. A lot of time to go through the YouTube videos. And I was upskilling myself. And that time, I think in this journey, I was already introduced to Test Tribe, right? And I was talking to Mahesh, understanding what exactly is happening in the community and trying to contribute in different ways. But my first exposure to what exactly Test Tribe is when I attended TestFlix 2020, where I was just a listener. I'd gone through those 2 or 3 days, I don't remember how many days, but going through a lot of different sessions and listening to the leadership of different organizations and the thought leaders who are working in testing activities across the industry, understanding. And there was one session which was, I don't remember that person, but I had a chat with him on SDET, SDET. That was a new term for me in 2020, just 2-3 years from now. And I started to explore about it. I was very fascinated by the things that they were talking about, they were doing, they were displaying us that they have achieved this thing. And I was like, how can somebody do so many things by just going through the videos? And then I started to interact with a lot of people, and I realized that whatever I was doing until then was again not test automation, right? It was just quick fixes to my problems. It was not genuine test automation. I think that was the period when the community leaders and my leaders in the organization, they helped me to define a plan. What exactly is test automation? What exactly is test date? And that is the time I figured out what exactly I need to achieve as in my professional career as a quality engineer. I think that was the, you call that, what is that? The certain event that changes your total career or total mindset,
Turning
right?
point
That was turning point, or you call it as, I don't get that, but I definitely remember having discussed about this in some of the Agile discussions of Eureka, where an event of Eureka or a point of Eureka, which basically gives you a completely different exposure of things that you are doing until now. And that is where I started doing this transition. I did it for myself first, right? I didn't want to push my entire team into it. I did this transition for myself, and I saw the difference I saw my deliverables, I saw the confidence that I got out of it, and then I put this to my team members. My organization, my leader definitely helped me a lot because this required a lot of time on training, a lot of self-time on understanding, a lot of time on unlearning things, because the first challenge that I had is not about learning about how do you transit. It's about unlearning. It's about, oh shit, what I was doing since last 4 years was crap.
Yeah.
That feeling, overcoming that feeling was a bigger part of it. But then it was fun. And it's still fun, and I'm sure it's going to be fun in future as well.
That was an amazing journey. And when you were telling this journey also, I had that word only, that it's great how you unlearn for at each stage when you got to know, okay, this is not what it represents. I have to learn more. And you were ready to learn more, you were ready to upskill yourself, and you were ready to unlearn all the old techniques and apply the new techniques. And I think that is very important for you to learn new things, and also for that career growth that you want. If you want to
Absolutely.
transition, it's very important.
Absolutely, because that's why we call it transition,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, it will be just reskilling. So in this process of transition, I learned in detail about these two terms, upskilling and reskilling. So upskilling is basically something that you learned certain subject up to certain level, and now you hit a roadblock, right? You don't know what to do next. And that is a time where you need either a mentor or a coach to uplift you, right? To upskill you, to give you a different perspective about the thing. Reskilling is basically you hit a point and you realize whatever I've done is not right. Go back to point zero and start from scratch. So these two definitions were very clear for me starting from 2022 to now.
Sounds great. So I have another question to you. Let's move on to now talking about the SDET, or how to transition to SDET. The first question I have for you is, what are the key skills required to become an SDET, according to you?
Well, to be honest, there are a lot of things that you need to do, right? I would like to categorize those things so that it becomes easy to absorb and also to practice. The first category I would like to put is the software engineering practices, right? And when I talk about software engineering practices, I kind of put a lot of things inside that bucket. One is programming languages, frameworks, tools are basically given, right? You need to have a good understanding of at least one programming language. You should know what it's doing, right? Now what we're doing is communicating. Programming language is a language to communicate with the systems. So if you have a hands-on at least one communication language, which we are using, in this case, it's English, right? Of course, there is a possibility that you can learn other languages as well, right? So at least have one programming language. Frameworks, it basically depends on context to context and situation to situation. So that's open. Tooling, again, it's by choice, by context, sometimes by restrictions. So again, it depends. But the key aspect in that software engineering aspect, I put it as Agile or Scrum practices. Right? It's very important to understand at what ceremonies we are doing, why we are doing, and how to contribute as a software developer, engineering test, or a quality engineer. And the third key component that I would like to add here in software engineering is general understanding of system thinking. System thinking in itself is a very big topic, right? I'm sure one of our community member Test Tribe, I think we have a talk on system thinking. I think I'm not sure if it is done or if we have it, but that is something which I request everyone to go through thoroughly. It's very, very important to understand. We are not just building a software. We are building an ecosystem of tools or softwares which are going to produce some actions, and they're going to deliver some value to the customers. It's more than software engineering from my perspective, right? So these are what the first category I would like to talk about. Second category is about business operations. A lot of people talk about business flows, business transactions, business knowledge, business understanding. Yes. Business operations is basically how things are happening on the ground. understanding of that is the key. We can go to Investopedia, we can go to, we can find books and documentations and whatnot on understanding the business conceptuality. But business conceptuality and business operations might differ. How that concept is implemented on ground and how operationally it is challenging or easy to deal with is what need of the hour. We need to understand as a software engineer or a quality engineer what's happening on operation, because those operational challenges are going to give you your edge cases, right? And that's all about business operation. The third, I think the classification, or this could be the last one, is about the collaboration. The collaboration aspect. Now, when I talk about collaboration, it's not just communication. Collaboration is way beyond communication, right? Whatever learnings you have, how do you produce it to your team members, to the product owners, to the scrum masters, and actual business users, that this is what it is. We talk, there are a lot of people who talk about BDD, TDD. You know, when they are talking about BDD and TDD, they are nothing, but they are basically showcasing their business operational understanding in some scripted format, so that is understandable for everyone, right? So I believe maybe there could be more than this, but these are the key skills I believe everyone should start focusing on, learning on, reading on, so that, you know, eventually we all go on to the path of achieving that ideal state where we are delivering products for good.
Got it. So we have a question. I think the other question is asking. Okay, so the question is basically about the language, like you talked about the three things that are almost all obviously very needed: programming language and all these things. So her question is that which programming language would you suggest? You know, which is on the top?
Well, to be honest, right? I will not switch context. I will just talk in terms of the context, right? If you got time to prepare, start with Java, right? That's the language that everyone should know, because once you know Java, once you know the concepts of Java, once you know the concepts of how they are done in Java, I think there is no other language that could do differently than that. Of course, there are languages where the implementation is a bit different, because architecturally the languages are different. But if you have time, go for learning core Java. Now, if you don't have enough time, right, I will still prefer referring to the references of the core Java, but then you can always start with Python.
Yeah.
Right? All the tools, because all the tools that we're talking about, they are language agnostic. So it should not stop you from immediately starting with it. But yes, on the ease part of it, you should start with Python.
Got it. Okay. So the next question I have for you is, how important is the knowledge of testing craft to become a good SDET?
Well, it's a very interesting question. Testing craft to become an SDET. I believe we all possess the testing craft, right? By the means of our job scope, or by means of the context we look at the software, right? And that differs whether you're verifying the system or you're validating the system, right? I remember one of my friend back from Barclays, he always differentiates between testing and checking, right? So all of us, at some point we do this. Now, who does what? And why SDET needs to understand the difference between these two is, if you talk about product owners, they are only looking at what's happening in the market and verifying if that's happening in my system. So if I happen to build a mobile app, right, and I'm the product owner, okay, so these are my competitors, they have these features, do I have this feature in my app? Oh, no, go and build it, right? I don't know the functioning of it. I am just checking if that is there so that I can be in a competition in the market. Scrum Masters will have a different perspective about it. Oh, my product owner is asking something. Build this, build this, build this. We need this. It's a checkbox. We need to fill it. Right? So that's checking. That's very fine. Developers, they will have a different perspective to it, right? Because they have some quality engineering aspects. When you build a piece of code, you don't want it to break. So they will basically put their efforts and emotions to it, and they will make sure that it's tested thoroughly. But then again, the testing is with respect to what requirements they get. And now it comes to the quality engineer of the team, right? And this person is so responsible to not just look at the individual perspectives of the team members, but on a holistic perspective of what the software is going to deliver in the market. So the SDET should have a validative perspective of if my software is doing certain thing, it is doing because the software is written in certain way. You know, there's a very, very fundamental story about you can have desired results by the code which is not written in a desired way.
Yeah.
Right? And that code which is not written in a desired way might give you some results which are not desirable.
Yeah.
And this could be only identified by a thorough validating process. Right? It's not just verifying the output. It's validating whether we are getting this output for this particular reason only. If there is other things that's happening, I'm going to say your software is doing something else. Because sometimes, you know, a defect or a bug has two definitions. One is something that I want but not happening is a defect. And something that I don't want but still happening is also a defect.
Yeah.
So it's the key.
Got it. That answers that question. We had a question from web search. He answered in between, and I just noted it down. So it was like, how can we gain experience in automation as a freelancer? We have
As a freelancer, so to be honest, right, when you're part of a project or when you're or you're given an assignment, there are certain aspects to that assignment, right? You have some prerequisites, right? What you do and what you not do in the projects. I'm not calling them as your deliverables. I'm calling them as prerequisites. Your deliverables are basically with respect to the context of what you're working on, which domain you're working on, which tool sets you're working on, what interfaces, interactions you're going to do. This in itself gives you a lot of variety of information on how can you explore different test automation aspects. If you're working for a banking domain on certain project, but you joined there as a freelancer, it shouldn't matter to you because you're part of the team now. You have the assignment to you. So you know what is the end outcome that is expected out of that project, right? So again, I'll go back to the three categories of the skills that I spoke about, the software engineering, all the things that we discussed, the product, the business operational understanding, and then again, the collaboration aspect, right? How much do you understand about it? How much do you want to learn about it? How much spikes do you need in a given sprint to understand the business operationality is something that covers, these are all aspects of test automation for me, right? And if you don't get answers, it's a problem.
understood. Okay. Now moving back to the transition. Now whenever we transit from one career to other or one job profile to other, obviously we first understand what the profile is in which we are transitioning. We covered that. The second thing is obviously the learning resources that we use. So my question is now related to that. Like, what are the typical learning resources that we can use to become an SDET?
Well, to answer this question, right, I will reflect into those 4 years that I said between 2016 to 2019, where I was using a lot of learning resources, right? Thanks to YouTube, thanks to Google. If you look at my my bookmark list is huge, and trust me, I've at least gone through first 20 to 30% of every bookmark that I have. The only problem that I did, I never finished even single. Because every time I do something, I do it for a purpose. I want to only do this, done. Right? Because that's what is expected out of me. To be honest, and this is what I recommend to all the people that I'm at this moment mentoring for this transition within organization, within community, is go by the book, read the book. Even to all the interviews that I conduct, I ask them questions on BDD and I get varieties of answers. None of it is aligned to what BDD is actually meant for. And I end up sharing the link for Cucumber for Java link PDF to all the interviewees that I conduct interviews with, right? Whatever mistakes I did, I really don't want my mentees to do, is to learn something half, it's half cooked. You're not going to, you might enjoy it at that moment, but for long run, it's not going to help. The right way of doing things, or maybe it's my way of doing things, right? It may not be the right way. There's always the right way for every individual. What I do is I read the book first. And I have some very interesting understanding about reading books. I read the book first, and then I go to the implementation of it. And implementation, I go directly to the architecture or the websites. And then I go to the YouTube videos, or if any training material, if needed. Right? There are some very great YouTube videos that, we can literally run through in 15, 20 minutes or half an hour and understand what basically we learned in the book. We saw the architecture and how well it is implemented. When I started in 2020 reading books, I read the book, I started implementing, and I achieved something. Then I got stuck somewhere. I read the book again. Right? And to be honest, since 2020 or 2021, I stopped reading book. I'm kind of listening to the books now, right? We all have access to the tools that, you don't have to read the books. You can listen to them, and that's much faster, right? Every time I go through the same book, I learn something new. And that fascinates me. Oh, shit, this is something new. How did I miss out in my previous reading or listening? Okay, matter not. I'll start implementing it, do it again. Third time, fourth time, it's always the case that every time I go through it, I'm reading, I'm getting to know something new. Then I had to stop at some time and realize what's happening. Am I a bad listener? That, I'm not reading, I'm not doing things good at first time? Probably the answer is yes. But there's also one of the aspects is when I'm reading book, I'm looking for something and my conscious is only focusing on that part, right? And trying to basically not avoid, but not absorbing the other information that book is giving me. So that become now it's my habit. Down the line, 3 years now, I have certain set of books. I don't read too many books. There are 5-6 books on Cucumber. There is a book on general system thinking. There are some books on leadership, which I repeatedly listen to, which gives me a new insight every time I go through, and that's very fascinating for me. So that's my first step. Second step, I go to, if I'm doing Cucumber, I go to the website and I see the implementation of it. And after reading the book, do the implementation, go through the implementation and do it yourself. So there are a lot of resources available. You have to find your way to use them. Like there are a lot of tools. When you go to war, you have to find the one that suits you. That's what I would like to say.
That's true. That was really insightful. And even I feel that, like I have read books where I need to know something, then I, just go through the book, I find the answer, then I just lose interest in that book. Then when you just sit down and, evaluate each sentence of such books, it's just magical because you learn so much from a book. There is so much knowledge there and it's amazing. So that was a really good point.
Indeed.
Other question I have is, so do you need a mentor for this transition? And if yes, how do you find one?
Before answering that question, I would like to confess that when I was on this transition, I never had a mentor, right? And that's why I could share a lot of things that somebody should not do.
Yeah.
So before understanding this question, right, I'm just going to share something about what is a coach and what is a mentor. A coach is someone who is going to motivate you, going to give you a goal, right? Going to sit with you, understand the realities, find the options, and make you realize or see your willingness to adapt to some approaches. That is a coach. And mentor is someone who has walked that path, right? And is going to hold your hand throughout that journey. Having a coach and mentor is not mandatory, but having a mentor into your transition path is something that will act as a catalyst. That will save a lot of time, right? Which you can utilize in doing so many other things at early stage of your career. Your question also had, how do you find one, right? There are a lot of communities which are doing, and I think Test Tribe is one of the key community which basically facilitate this kind of a mentorship program. And if I'm not wrong, there is a list of mentors in which we have some very huge names where there are seasoned mentors, right? Who have walked this path on different domains, different technological aspects, different technological challenges, who are willing to help. Right? It's just a matter of finding that list and approaching to that person. That's it.
That was a very insightful answer. I have one last question for you all, and then we'll take some questions for the chat.
Sure.
So, folks, if you want to ask any questions to Jayesh, do drop in now, so that after this last question, we can take them up. So, the question I have for you is, what does a normal day for an SDET looks like?
Well, it depends, right? It's not like every SDET looks like a hacker and keeps on coding and all those things. No, it's never like that. It's never like that. It depends on the context of what you're doing, right? Sometimes you are attending different sprint ceremonies and you have a different role to play. Different meetings needs different preparation, right? Yeah. Going back again to the skills of software engineering, business operation knowledge, and collaboration aspect. So different ceremonies of sprint demands you to prepare differently for different context, right? I believe that is one of the challenging stuff for all SDETs, right? Tooling, coding is part of the life. That is not the challenging stuff. That you will do it somehow. But understanding the context of the work and sharing your knowledge, because you are the only one who is looking at the system from the validation perspective, right? Remember, you are the only one. The SDETs or the quality engineers are the only one looking from the validation perspective. Rest all are looking from verification, checking perspective. For them, it's just a checkbox. But for quality engineer and SDET, it's why certain things are happening. And that needs a deeper understanding of business operations and how it is done in terms of software engineering, development life cycle, and how am I collaborating with my people that, we wrote this code in this way, but it is giving me some undesirable results as well, right? And this mind frame, this thinking process, right, helps you to also do a lot of root cause analysis and bug reporting, defect reporting with your analysis and your understanding. That is, I believe, is something which is a core to this profession, right? That's how I see all my team members spending their more time into it.
So we have one question from Web Sourcer. They are asking what actual difference is there in the long run between a pure testing company project like Qualitest, Quality Kiosk, Moola, etc., and a QA in a whole development project. So yeah. So long run pure testing company project and a QA in whole development project. Difference between both of them.
That's a very interesting question, right? So it also depends on what model the project has been built, right? Now I am also a consultant, right? I'm a professional consultant. We go to our clients, be part of their team, right? And make sure that we share all this information that we have in terms of quality engineering, all the practices that we have in build, share with them and help them to adapt to this, or if they have a better processes and policies, we learn from it.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know, there are still a lot of organizations which are believing in building first and delivering later, and testing later and delivering, which is a waterfall model.
Yeah.
So it all depends on, so it's all about how is the integration model that we are working with the clients. All right. Of course, banks, product companies, they have their different approaches. Then there are e-commerces, there are startups, they have their different processes, their different approach towards developing the software. When I work with all the different players in the market. It's basically understanding their perspective, the business operation, what they want to deliver, how they want to deliver. Of course, a budget constraint plays a big role here as well, but let's take it out of this discussion right now. But all the software service providers that we just listed in that question, they have a bigger role to play because they are expertise in this validation aspect, what I just discussed, right? Sometimes when you are developing some product, you go into the flow of developing so much, you start assuming that your checking verification is the actual testing, which is not. You need specialists who understand and take that role seriously and tells you the insights of what the code is written, what is your desired and undesired results. So I don't see this going anywhere else, but there's need a lot of collaboration, right? There has to be a lot of different models of integration, collaboration between the clients and the service providers or the testing experts, and that the results will be driven by that.
Got Thank you for answering that, Jayesh. I have another question from Manoj.
Sure.
He is asking, why do we have less opportunities for QAs compared with development opportunities?
Who says that?
Interesting question.
That's a very, very interesting question. I think, okay, it's not about opportunities. It's about it's about having the right skills, right? Quality assurance, quality engineering, quality control. These are the three different contexts that we're talking about now. And SDET is something beyond that. My humble answer to this is, trust me, people are looking for quality engineers, right? I am looking for quality engineers throughout my day-to-day in activities. It's not that there are less demands. It's just that when I take interviews, the context that I talked about, software engineering, I talked about business operations, I talked about collaboration, there is a serious lack of understanding of all these points. Give yourself 4 to 6 months, build on all these aspects, and then I will ask these questions that how many opportunities that you get for being a good quality engineer.
I think that answers your question, Manoj. I don't think so there are any other questions left. I think we can now conclude this session. Thank you so much, Jayesh. It was great talking to you. It was such a interesting and insightful conversation with you. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to all our attendees who listened to us for this like 40 minutes and stay tuned to what we were talking about. So thank you all. Um, a big shout out to our team who helped organize all of this. And we'll meet soon with another topic on another IG Live with a new guest. So thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Vanshika. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.